Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for I think this is, and maybe I've said this before, Justin, but this is probably one of the more exciting releases and office hours that at least in a long time. Um, and today, for you folks who are joining us here on LinkedIn or YouTube, again, thank you so much for doing so. But today we're going to be diving into how to align your sales assets with your buyer's journey using AssetMule. And I think there are a couple reasons why I'm particularly excited about this. By the way, I'm George Soto, one of the co-founders here at AssetMule, joined by my co-founder and CEO, Justin Dorfman. And Justin and I, we've really been in the weeds for a while now. It's going to be almost 2 years, like 2025 beginning is going to be 2 years that we've been on this journey. And we've thought a lot about the idea that product marketers and content and things like that, that whole bucket of jobs to be done and stakeholders and so on, have really been looked at in many ways as just assets or stakeholders who are just doing things just to do things, right? And not really thinking about it in a strategic way. And I think that like the most intelligent organizations have an understanding of how to align these assets or initiatives that we're working on in a very strategic way. And of course, it doesn't get more strategic than understanding the buyer's journey. And again, for the folks out there, this is not your sales process, right? This should mirror, in my opinion, your sales process, but it is really about those steps that we've been able to figure out on the prospect or customer side around purchasing, whether it's a net new deal or an expansion or new purchase on an existing customer side. So today we're going to dive into that. We're going to really dive into not only that concept, but the functionality, which in a second I'll hand it over to Justin and we'll dive into. But folks, if you do have any questions, comments, feedback, you disagree, you think that buyers' journeys are poo-poo and we shouldn't think about them and we should just be ad hoc guessing, would love to hear your justification for that. So go ahead and comment on the comment wall here on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'll get to those. Unless it's super urgent, we'll get to those at the end during our Q&A session. So without further ado, Justin, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, and I agree with you, George. This is one of the more exciting office hours and releases here. And I think the reason why is we've been sharing this point of view for quite some time now, and it seems to be resonating out there. And we've now turned it into a feature in the product to actually enable this. So for me, that's like the ultimate as a founder of a company, right? But to take a step back, and then we'll dive into the platform here in a second and show the new feature. I like to really think about like what the role is of sales assets, right? And this is kind of where this concept came from and this idea came from. And if the way that I describe the role of sales assets is to provide the information and provide confidence to your buyers at each stage of their buyer's journey, right? To move forward to the next stage and ultimately towards a purchase, right? And this all starts with mapping out the buyer's journey, right? Understanding what questions your buyers are asking at each stage of that journey, from awareness through consideration, decision-making, and even post-sale through success, right? What are the questions that they're asking? What are the objections that they have? And arming your sales team with the content and collateral to be able to answer those questions at the moments in time when the buyers have those questions. So with this feature, that's really what we're enabling, right? We're enabling you as product marketers to create a library of sales asset templates that you can now start to align with the various stages of the buyer's journey, so that number one, your sales team knows which assets to use at the right time, and they can easily find those assets, which we know is a real challenge, right? That's a big challenge out there, is salespeople not knowing which assets to use and where to find them. So we're addressing that. But then on the other side of the coin, for the buyer, it's providing them that content and that information to give them the confidence to, move forward, right? You've answered their questions, you've handled their objections, and now they're ready to move forward to the next stage. And then finally, also as a product marketer, as we'll show here, it's a great way to actually look at your entire template library and identify gaps, right? What are things that are missing in that library that you need to fill with content, right? So again, we'll step through all of these right now as we dive into the platform. So I'm going to share my screen. And again, if you have any questions as I'm walking through this, we do have time at the end for Q&A. So feel free to add them to the comment section. Oops, excuse me. And yeah, we'll address them. But for those, before we go into the buyer's journey, just very quick, for those that are not familiar with AssetMule, we make it super quick and easy to create all kinds of sales assets, from one-pagers to case studies, to competitive pages, sales decks, proposals, and again, all throughout the buyer's journey. We do that by giving you a library of pre-designed templates that you can easily copy, add your brand colors and fonts to, just by inputting your URL to your website. We grab all that great stuff for you, and populating with your own content. We also give you the ability to create your own templates from scratch through a very easy to use sort of visual template builder, where you're dragging and dropping essentially components, almost like assembling them like a website builder. And then once you have your library of templates, this is what it looks like. These are our templates here at AssetMule. You'll see with our branding, our content in them. And now that we have all these templates in here, as I mentioned, the next step to make this really strategic and really help our salespeople understand which assets to use at the right time, a key step is aligning these with the various stages of the buyer's journey. So let's say I have this parsable case study here. Great asset that speaks to how our customer Parsable is benefiting from using AssetMule. This to me is a classic asset that you'd want to use, or a salesperson would want to use, in the consideration stage. So if we think about the buyer's journey, awareness, consideration, decision-making, all the way through post-sale and success, in the consideration stage, your buyers are asking the question of, who else is using you guys, right? Who else that's similar to us, right? Similar industry, similar persona, similar use case is using you guys, and how are they using you guys, and what sort of value or benefits, results are they getting from it? So that's a perfect asset, a case study for that stage when they're asking these questions. And what you can do in AssetMule now is, for each of your templates, you can assign it to a particular stage in the buyer's journey to make it easier for your sales team to find those assets as they're working with buyers in those stages. So you'll see this new stage section in the template settings, and I can just click consideration to now organize this template in that stage. And I'll just show you what that looks like from the sales perspective. So again, sales is going to be working with the team library of templates, trying to figure out which templates that they should use for their particular buyer. And you'll now see this drop down where they can filter by all the different stages. They can see all the awareness templates. They can see the consideration templates, including that parsable case study, and all the other templates for the various different stages. So again, making it super easy as they're working with the prospect to understand which templates are available for them for that particular stage. But the next use case here, again, for the product marketer, is being able to see this from a perspective of all your templates, right, across all your stages, and identify any gaps that need to be filled, right, to really support your sales team and enable them in moving buyers beyond these stages. So as we can see here with AssetMule, we've got the awareness stage, and we've got a bunch of templates that are available for the sales team to use, from outbound templates to follow-up templates to one-pagers. Then we've got that consideration stage where we've got, again, the case studies, but also, competitive comparison pages and things like that really help for enabling those buyers to understand how you're different from other solutions they're considering. And then even in the success stage, we see getting started guides and all these post-sale templates that help them get ramped up and move them towards success and, adoption and expansion and so on. But what I see in our library here is actually a gap, right? We don't have any templates to help in the decision-making stage. So what you can do now is you can very easily click on the templates, the pre-designed templates that are in the AssetMule library organized by the decision stage. And I can see now here that there's a proposal template that I can consider using as well, and filling that gap in my own library. And to do that, all I have to do is copy that template and start building on top of it, right? Add my content to it, and really build this out as a template that my sales team can now use in the decision-making stage of the buyer's journey to help move their buyers towards that decision and ultimately a purchase. And because I copied this from the AssetMule template library and it was organized in the decision stage, it's already checked, right? So when I save this, it will be in my library in that stage. Now, if my buyer's journey looks a little bit different and I decide that a proposal template doesn't belong in the decision stage, maybe it belongs in the consideration stage, I can always change that. But it's nice that right from the get-go, it's organized that way so that, again, once I'm finished adding our content to this, I can go ahead and save it. AssetMule proposal, since I'm building this for my own sales team. And then when I go back to the library here, the template, the team library, and look at all the different stages, now you can see that gap is filled and my sales team has a fully populated library here for them to pull from based on this stage. And again, you can see it in the buyer's journey view. You can also see it in that gallery view. And again, if the sales team filters by decision stage, they'll see it here ready for them to use. So that's the new buyer's journey functionality. And again, really making it easy for sales teams to find the right assets to use, for buyers to get the right information they need when they need it, to feel confident in moving to the next stage of the buyer's journey, and to ultimately speed up sales processes, right, and sales cycles, because removing friction, answering objections is what ultimately leads to faster sales cycles and higher win rates. So I'm going to pause here for any questions on this new exciting feature.
Awesome, folks. And just as a reminder, if you do have any questions, comments, feedback, you like or dislike my hat, you can see there. Go ahead and add these to the comment section here on LinkedIn or YouTube, depending on where you're watching. And so I've been monitoring this area. So, do put those in there and we'll get to them immediately. This is the section now, or the time to be able to do so. And a couple things, Justin, that really gets me fired up about this functionality. We talked about the strategic nature of this and why this is super important, right? You've heard me talk about this before. I've been conducting sales trainings in the past when I was a Mustang out there in the wild. And how many times did I sit down with the team? You've heard me say this before, but I think it's important for folks. And I go, all right, well, tell me about the buyer's journey. What does that look like? And they go, okay, well, I send, this email, I add this prospect to a sequence. Here's what it says. I update the CRM and I go, no, that's not what I'm asking. And it's just like, I can't tell you how many times they just didn't get it. And when I actually framed it in a different way and I said, well, this is the buyer's journey. So like, of your most successful customers, right? And so success means a lot of different things. My buddy Aaron Ross, who wrote a book called Predictable Revenue, talked about where that sort of on a graph. What is that graph called again? Where where you
Quadrant.
plot, yeah, in the quadrant. What in which quadrant sort of defines your ideal customer profile, right? And your ideal customer. And so, assuming that you've figured that out, and now you have data to look back at, what does the purchasing or buyer's journey look like within the minds of your buyer? And so let's just assume that you've mapped that out. And then now from our side, all right, we have a sales process that we're putting together that mirrors that, right? And then gives them the assets that they need, as Justin mentioned, the right assets at the right time. But it's not just about having that intellectually, because look, we're humans, we're not robots yet, right? I don't know about 10 years from now, but for now we're human. And so the ability to visualize stuff is so important, right? I've always loved like the CRMs out there that have done this, right? Like the pipe drives. And I think there's a reason why spreadsheets have always been something that we end up defaulting back to at times when we need to do certain work, because despite having much better and more intelligent tools, because there's a visual component. So just being able to actually have a visual in the system that not only as a marketer or product marketer or sales enablement task professional allows you to like understand and think visually, psychologically where these things go. But as a salesperson, being able to really easily go in there and say, okay, I'm in this stage. What are the assets or asset that I need, and then be able to now, at least within our templates right now, generate an asset from that, right? So there's some very practical stuff, but there's also like some subconscious stuff that I think happens, because frankly, we're salespeople running around doing different things, go to market professionals, and so we need all the help that we can get, right?
Yeah, and I think you made a really interesting point, which is this sort of misconception or misunderstanding of the buyer's journey being the sales process, right? But it really does take getting into the buyer's shoes and thinking about the questions that they have at each of those stages. So just to kind of maybe talk through how I thought about our own way of organizing our buyer's journey, I'll just reshare my screen here and just talk through it, right? So when I think about the awareness stage, I think about our prospects and what they're probably asking. So they're probably asking, oh, what is AssetMule, right? Why is it relevant for me? And like, how would I use it? What problems does it solve for me, right? And that's where I think these outbound assets or these interactive one pagers that we have, or again, like maybe we met somebody at an event, right? Like inbound, this sort of inbound follow-up assets, where again, the idea of these assets is to answer those questions, to show them what we do, show them how it's relevant for them, what problems it would solve for them, and the type of benefits that they would get, right? As we go through the consideration stage, I think the questions that they're asking are, okay, I understand what you do now, but again, like back to the Parsable example, who else is using it, right? And who else that's similar to me, and how are they using it, and what value are they getting? But also things like, I'm also considering HighSpot, or maybe I already use HighSpot. So how are you different from that solution, right? What makes you unique? What makes you more valuable or more suitable for my needs? And then also maybe it's like, this all looks great, but I need some support in getting onboarded, right? I have limited resources. Do you have any professional services that you can provide to really help me get to value faster? So those are the type of assets that I think about in the consideration stage. Once we get to the decision stage, for me, this is where they're bringing in on other stakeholders, right? Like the CFO to approve the budget, or their VP to sort of make sure that this aligns with the overarching goals, and to like make sure that the implementation plan and the onboarding plan is suitable for how their team works, right? And a central asset like a proposal that documents all of that for all those stakeholders, but also things like business cases or ROI calculators for the CFO, I think would fit in really nicely in the decision stage. And then finally, once we get to the success stage, they've bought the solution. Now it's all about getting them to success, right? And things like getting started guides, or implementation onboarding plans, or even quarterly business reviews and things like that all fit in that stage. So that's just, again, thinking through the buyers from the buyer's point of view, the type of questions that they have, and starting to align these assets with the goal of answering those objections, addressing those questions, removing any friction in that process to make it a seamless experience through the buyer's journey. And one mistake that I see a lot of salespeople do is after a follow-up call very early in the sales process, they just grab a bunch of these. They grab a one-pager, they grab a case study, they grab the professional services doc, maybe even the proposal and the getting started guide, and just throw it all at the, as attachments to the buyer. And now the buyer's overwhelmed, and it's almost like giving them homework, right? Sequencing this information as they go through this buyer's journey and really aligning it with the time that they have those questions and they need those answers, I think is a much better experience for the buyer. And the question that comes up a lot is, okay, so we're sharing all these assets. Can we, isn't it going to be buried in a bunch of emails then, right? At least when we're sending it in one email, it's all organized in that one email that they can reference. But there's actually another template that I recommend considering using for that use case, which is our asset hub, right? Let me just pull it up here, where you can actually then organize all your assets in one place, right? You can link them here in these link blocks. And again, they don't have to be sent all at one time. You can start with the one pager and the demo recording, let's say, and then, as you're having discussions and they're asking about who else is using, you throw in the case study in there, or if they mention a competitor, you add the competitive comparison page. And then eventually when you get to the right stage, you add the proposal. And because it's a dynamic web-based asset, these can be built out over time. And every time your buyer views that page, there might be more information for them to check out, right? All in one place, so they don't have to dig through those emails. So just, wanting to sort of walk through that process of how to think about your buyer's journey, and then ultimately how to share these assets with the buyer in sort of the most relevant but also organized way that doesn't overwhelm them and provides them the right information they need when they need it.
Awesome. Well, folks, again, if you do have any questions, comments, feedback, this is the time to ask live. We also understand that a lot of you folks are able to watch this or see this on the replay after the fact. So go ahead and comment, even if you weren't able to catch this live, and we'll get to you. We do these most Wednesdays. So, if you do want to ask something live and want to catch another one, you can go ahead and do so as well. So,
and one ask as well is, the way that we do things at AssetMule is we try and release features early and in the sort of simplest form to start with and iterate over time, right? So as you're looking at this buyer's journey, if you have any ideas on ways that we can continue to evolve this functionality, right? We'd love to hear it. So either, add a comment on the LinkedIn video or DM George or myself. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Again, this is just the V1 of the buyer's journey. There's a lot more that we have in mind for this, but also a lot more that I think we can learn from you guys as you use it and as you share ideas and feedback with us. So definitely ping us, give us some ideas on how we can continue to evolve and improve it. And let us know if you think it's valuable or also not valuable. As George said, it's always great to get feedback from the market on these things.
All right, awesome. Well, maybe a couple things that I wanted to point out. If you are watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, I pasted a link to an article that we put together thinking about how to map your sales assets to the buyer journey. So that's something that we put together. So not only does it give you insight into the actual buyer journey, but with our little flavor of thinking about it from the sales asset perspective. So go ahead and check that out. You can also check out our blog. Go to assetmule.ai/blog, and we're constantly putting content on there. Of course, here on LinkedIn and YouTube, Justin, we have before you know it, we'll have 400 videos on YouTube.
Wow.
We're at 3 something. So thank you for everyone out there who's been super inspiring. And, we really couldn't create as much content as we do without you, right? So whether you're on our podcast or are creating content across the web, that's super great. We just launched a little over a month and a half ago or so our new newsletter. It's called the Product Marketing Digest. It's on Substack. So if you're on Substack, go ahead and search for it. Either way, I'll go ahead and post it here on in the comments area as well. And we feature what we think are super interesting content around the topic of product marketing that we find mostly on LinkedIn, but we do find articles and stuff outside of LinkedIn as well on this particular topic. So we'll look for a couple of those, feature that in the newsletter. Also, we'll feature podcasts that we've done in the past on the topic of product marketing, and then other content like events or exciting feature launches and things like that within the Mule product. Now we don't like put every Asset Mule news in there or piece of news or information, but some of the really exciting ones that we think are not just great features but strategic. So it'll hopefully get folks thinking a little more strategically. We'll add those in there. So just some things to think about. As I mentioned, I'll go ahead and put the link to sign up to that newsletter here in the comments. Justin, I know we're almost up here on time. Anything else that we want to share with the fine folks out there? Oh, also shout out to Rand Fishkin, who was on our podcast. We just launched the 100th episode of the GT Impact podcast today. So very, very thankful. And ironically, it was actually not ironically, because I did think about it fittingly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, if we could sort of wish for a certain, number of guests to have on the podcast, I think Rand would be in the top 3 at the very beginning when we first went on this adventure. So to have him be on the 100th episode, and I just sort of watched it right before this to hear sort of the incredible insights that that he was sharing. I think, it's fitting that he's the 100th guest, and again, an episode that we could only have wished for when we started on this. So it's a great milestone for us.
Totally. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll actually put the link to the podcast episode as well, so y'all can see. And I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us here live. And if you are watching the replay, thank you for doing so. Again, go ahead and add any comments, questions, etc. that you might have, feedback, and we'll get back to you. If you are an existing Asset Mule, thank you very much. Muchas gracias. And if not, and you're curious on checking it out, go to AssetMule.ai. It's free to get started. We'll have a free forever plan. So we're really leaning into that self-serve PLG model to really lead with value. And again, if you have any questions, feedback, feature requests, use case requests, etc., different verticals that you're part of that you think this would be super valuable for, we are hungry for that type of information. So do let us know. And we are literally a ping away, whether it's on our website. If you go to AssetMule.ai and click on book a demo, you literally schedule on my personal calendar. So you have that direct line, but also ping us on DM on LinkedIn. We are on LinkedIn all day and night. So we are very, very accessible and are humbled to talk to folks out there. So without further ado, have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday and happy holidays.